Formatting, Part 2. In Part 1, we covered how to do bold, italic, and underline. In this, we're going to cover how to do subscript, superscript, code, and pre-formatted text. First, we're going to start off with subtext. Sub, or subscript, is the element that will make your text below regular text line. For example, right in the title here, we have the letters SUB, and it's about halfway down from the regular line. How we do this is we just use the sub element, and tag is SUB, just close it with SUB, and it'll display your subscript text like that. Now this can seem a little bit useless at first, so why would we use this? Perhaps when you're writing a chemical formula or an element, you would want to use this. If we take a common element such as water and write it without the subscript, it looks like this. Which isn't bad, people still understand, but if we use the subscript, it looks better. We have H2O down there, and it looks a lot more professional. And depending on what type of website you're going to make, you may want to look a little more professional. Here's a trick to remembering what sub does. A sub, or submarine, is underwater. So your subtext is going to be under the regular text line. Next we have our superscript text. And this is the exact opposite. Instead of bringing our text below the text line, it's going to bring it above. And it's the exact same thing as sub from earlier. It's just SUP as in programming instead of SUB as in Bob. And it displays it like this. Now our lettering is a lot smaller. It's also a lot higher. And again, this might not be used all the time. But it is nice to know how to make those footnotes when you need it. Now here's an example. There was a man who worked for a living. Well, if you wanted to define who man was, you could create a footnote. I use a number 1 with a superscript, and then right below it, I defined it. Where number 1, that man was named Caleb. And to remember this tag, just think about Superman. We have Superman, and he flies high above all the other text. Next we have our code text. Now this one, I'll be honest, might not get used too much unless you're creating, for example, a class like this, or you're going to purposely be displaying code. And if that's the case and you just want to show people a piece of code, you can use the code element. Now what's so special about it is it will use a specific font to make it recognized as code. For example, up here we open it, we close it, and we got our content inside, and it displays it like this. It looks a lot more like computer code than it does regular text. And finally, we have our pre-formatted text. Pre-formatted text is actually pretty special. It uses the pre-tags. Pre-formatted is the long name, but you just use PRE. And if you look at our code up here, it's going to display it exactly how we wrote it. So up here we have a lot of spacing. Typically with HTML, your browser will try and remove more than one space. If you use a pre-formatted text, you can use 2 spaces, you can use 2,000 spaces, and it will preserve all of them. With pre-formatted text, you also don't have to use any line breaks. So there's no need to use the BR tag. You can simply cut down to the next line. For example, from here to here. There's no BR in there, and it still created a new line. And very similar to how the code element works, all the letter spacing is the exact same, so the letters match up from line to line. For example, if you take a look at the first letter of each 4 lines here, they line up perfectly. Even the smaller letter, such as I, matches perfectly with a capital T, which is a much larger letter. Now I would just like to let you know that pre-formatted text is in fact a block element, meaning if you try to put pre-formatted text in a regular line of code, it's going to create its own section for it. Whereas code, sup, and sub will not do that. You can put that in the exact same line. Now I just want to quickly go over some of the differences between code and pre-formatted. Code can be used beside other text. Like I said, it's not a block element, but it does not preserve spacing, and it does require you to use BR tags. Whereas pre-formatted text does preserve all spacing, and it does not need a line break tag. To create a new line using pre-formatted text, simply make a new line. Many developers use pre-formatted text over code because of these attributes it has. It's nice to be able to copy a piece of code into an HTML page wrapped by the pre-tags, and not worry about fixing all the spaces, changing font, or making it a unique section. If you're just starting off with HTML, these may not apply to you for a little while yet. However, in the event that you do need a reference, you now have one here.